Okay, so we said we're going to be organic, so this is the organic first version of extroversions. It's my attempt to be more extroverted, and I hope you can hear everything okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, right now we're sitting in a restaurant, and York just perked up because that's York, if you're listening.
Yeah.
So I'm here with Emily Michaels. She's a writer, a blogger, a singer, a humorist, and a recent TEDx Talk grad from Jacksonville, Florida. And we wanted to get together today to talk more about her writing, her musings on perspective and things like that. We've actually had a really good conversation before we even turned on the recorder. We should have been recording that.
I know, right? Outtakes.
Right. So one of the things I wanted to tell you, and I will reiterate that in preparation for this whole project, I read a lot of the things that you've written, and I listened to your TED Talk a couple of times because every time I listened to it, it seemed like I got the intonation a little bit different on some words and things like that. So I enjoyed listening to it every single time I listened to it. So my overall impression of you is that you are a communicator. You like to communicate with people, and I find that refreshing because some people aren't communicate. Like, some people know things, but they can't communicate those things. And you're one of those people that I feel like are able to take the words that are in your head or the thoughts that are in your head and either put them on paper or at least explain them to the world. Does that come naturally to you, or do you feel like you have to practice that, or does it come naturally to you, do you think?
You know, I would say it does come pretty naturally. The TED Talk is the exception because it was a challenge to decide what was my message and how did I want to get that to people. And I received a lot of criticism from people who said, you're being too bitter, you're being too harsh, you know.
This was after the TED Talk?
No, when I was rehearsing. So there was a lot of rehearsals.
Okay.
But generally, I feel like my real strength is analogies. I feel like when I could say to someone, it's like this, and I feel that I have a real knack for that. Because whenever I explain things, even if it's like teaching grammar to my students or...
Sorry.
No problem.
You rather have a one check or separate check?
Separate.
For the fried calamari, where should I put it?
Oh, mine, please.
Yours.
Thank you.
Thank you. We can edit that part out.
Yeah. Or not.
I know, right? It's real.
It's real, people.
Thai food was really good.
Clink.
Fair, that sounds authentic. So I do feel like analogies are my strong suit. And then when I deliver an analogy to people, generally I get the reaction I'm hoping for. They go, "Oh man, really?" You know. So I will say I think that it does come pretty naturally to me to kind of understand what people don't know and then try to bridge that gap.
Yeah. So have you been writing for a long time? Like, did you, like, from the womb start writing, or was there a period of time where you feel like you picked it up? Or
I didn't start writing until probably like maybe middle school, serious writing. I mean, I was always kind of making up stories. My mom tells me that I used to run up and down the hall talking to people who weren't there, making up things. But I was on the piano at a very early age, and I played piano all the time. And this is before I really sang a lot or was professionally trained to sing. And then piano got really hard. Sight reading piano music became really difficult. So I was kind of like, I'm over it. And I didn't have a good way to move forward. I still don't have a good way, and that's why I haven't gone back to piano. But I kind of put down piano and picked up my pen and started writing more. In like middle school, I used to, my friends would take notes for me in class on this paper that made 2 copies. So like they would copy down whatever was on the board.
Oh, cool.
And
like a carbon.
Yeah,
paper
exactly.
situation.
So it was like a carbonless paper, and I would take the exact same paper, my version of it, and I would write stories and plays for them. So it looked like we were both taking notes, but really
Oh, okay.
I wasn't paying attention. They were, and they thought it was a fair trade. So, and then I parodied everything, like everything that I loved. I made satirical versions of, so like Harry Potter or Star Wars. I mean, I liked anime for a time, and so I would write my own versions of the stories with.
So like fan fiction?
Yeah,
or,
but better.
okay.
You know,
Okay.
like it was never
Fan
you know-
fiction, but better. I like it.
You know how fanfic can be very serious. Mine was totally like I imagine what SNL would do with these kinds of stories.
Okay.
So, and then I started writing a trilogy of fantasy novels, and I used to work on those in middle school, high school, college. They're still on my computer. Thank you. So, I think sometimes about what I would do with those now. I don't know that I would do anything with them, but I definitely loved spending a lot of time thinking about them and writing them. And then in college, I started writing more poetry. None of it was very good. And then when I graduated, I thought when I finished with my master's in English, I freaked out. I had the meltdown that everybody is supposed to have at the age of 25. And
The quarter life crisis.
yes,
That's
absolutely. So, in order to prevent myself from having a complete and total breakdown, I entered an essay contest. They were calling for essays for a textbook about disability. And so I said, okay, let me try this. And it's actually the first piece that I ever sent out to a publisher, and they accepted me. And it's actually has taken several years. It just came out in February. So, but it was the very first piece I ever sent away.
And which one was that? Was that the one?
That's the one about my sunglasses.
It
So it's
talks
called,
about you're 25 years old or something like that. Because I was like,
it's called Shades of Shame, and it's in a textbook called Barriers and Belonging. So I'll send you a
oh,
PDF.
yeah, okay,
Yeah.
that sounds good.
It's the one about sunglasses.
Okay,
So-
I can't recall if I read that, so I must not have read that one.
It just came out,
I did
and
try to read everything.
Sure, I know. Yeah, I scanned it as a PDF though, so you can get to it.
And I will say one of the things that I noticed, and I don't know if you noticed this or not, but several pieces that I read, you start off talking about what you're wearing. Did you notice that you do that?
Oh, how funny! Really?
Yeah,
That's
the
funny.
TED Talk, you started talking about your code, and it
Oh,
was
yeah,
it was
yeah.
Not cold enough for a coat, but it was like a light jacket or a vest
Or
or
a
something.
scarf.
A
Yeah,
scarf.
yeah,
And
exactly.
then one of the other stories that I read, you were talking about. Oh, jeez, I wish I could recall it now, but it started out talking about what you were wearing, and I was like, I wonder if she knows that she does that. Like, I like that you do that because it's sort of like it really has nothing to do with the story, but
Right.
it kind of gets you into your mind space where you
Right.
are, so that we are kind of like embodying you and
Sure.
and kind of inhabiting your space
Well, I like
for a little
taking
while.
people into the decisions that I'm making, especially because, again, like we talked off the record about, why would a blind girl get a pedicure?
Right.
So, why would a blind girl wear a scarf? Well, I'm wearing it because I want to, and so I wouldn't say that I deliberately set out to do that, although now I'm going to have to go back through and see, because I'm sure that I do. But I like showing people that my fashion is a deliberate choice, regardless
Right.
of whether I know that I'm wearing the red dress or the blue dress. It is very deliberate.
And I like that. I see what you mean by that. Like, kind of what we were talking about, like, people might make the assumption that a blind girl doesn't care about what she's wearing because who cares? Because
Yeah.
she can't see it anyway.
Yeah.
But so you're telling us by doing this couple of things that I do care. I make
Right.
conscious choices about what I'm wearing, and it's for a reason.
Right.
Like, I do care. You can't make the assumption that a blind girl doesn't care.
Right.
because
Exactly.
This blind girl cares.
Or that someone else is dressing me.
Right.
You look. In fact, I've had people say to me, "Well, I never would have known you were blind. You dress so well." And I'm like, "Well, that's not really a compliment." So, thank you.
So tell me about how the TED Talk came about. Did they approach you, or how
I
did that come
had
about?
a friend who had done it the previous year, and in fact, this is really bad, but I went on and I saw that I've already surpassed his number of views, so I felt better about myself.
So there's a little bit of view competition
yeah.
going on.
But
Okay.
I don't even think he knows that I've done that. So whatever, that's just for me. But I had two friends who had done TEDx FSCJ, so it was unique to FSCJ. And so one of them said, "You really need to do this." And I said, "Oh my God, I don't know. I don't have anything to say, right? Like, why did, I can't give a TED Talk. What am I going to talk about?" So they said, "Look," and so because they were previous speakers, they were able to recommend that I apply. And so what they did, because when I went on the website, I couldn't really find the application. So my friend had recommended it, and then the TEDx people sent me a link. And they said, we've gotten this recommendation, and we think you should apply. And anybody could have gone on the website and applied, but it wasn't like working correctly or something. So it's not like I had to have their recommendation in order to be picked. So when you applied, there was a whole form that you had to fill out. In fact, it was really funny. I'll never do this again because I didn't save my responses. I was like, whatever, I'll just remember it. So it wasn't like
Those pesky online forms.
I know it wasn't a Google form, so I couldn't
Thank you.
download, my responses or
On the
whatever.
top.
Okay, I was like, I'm just gonna grab one. So when I actually did get accepted, I had to ask them, can you send me my responses? But the questions were like, what would you want to teach people? What is it you think you have to offer? What's your perspective? What is the one thing you want our students to walk away knowing? And so I started to talk about what I called, the confluence of disability and imagination. And I didn't realize that would be my title because I didn't plan on that being my title, but they made that my title when they talked about me. And so I said, okay, whatever, cool. I don't know what else I would have called it. So, but basically it was a bunch of free response questions that I had to develop answers to. And I didn't really know that I had something to say. And that's why I think it's really
that's
important.
interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's important that everybody do one because you think you have nothing to say until someone reads it and goes, wow, you really have something to say. And what I wanted to talk about was the way that we have so many expectations about what kind of bodies are supposed to show up.
Mm-hmm.
And what would it be like if we kind of stepped back from those expectations and said, okay, it's cool when anybody shows up. So I talked about, like that, and I mentioned this in my TED Talk, right, that you look at a theater, all the seats are shaped the same. Well, we expect certain people to fill those seats. And I have friends of all sizes, and I know that not everybody is comfortable in those seats, short, tall, fat, thin, whatever.
Right.
But I filled out that application, and then they told me about a month later that I was in. I know that I think there were about 50 or 70 people that applied, and I think 10 were chosen. So, pretty good odds.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then we went through rigorous coaching and drafting and workshops and then many rehearsals, and then we presented.
See, I would love to just go through the workshop.
You
Maybe
would
not give the talk, but
the workshop was a nightmare. We had to do an improv workshop, which I hated because the improv coach was very focused on her methods, and you talk about people who have something to teach but they don't know how to communicate.
Yeah.
She was very extroverted. She was very much I don't want to say exhibitionist, but those people who are proud of their scars. She was one of those, and she was contradictory.
and when you're standing on the opposite end of the spectrum, you really, like, when two people are on the opposite end of the spectrum, they really don't get one another for those reasons.
No,
Like,
exactly.
like you're completely at the opposite end.
She made the assumption of thinking that anytime someone was uncomfortable in one of her exercises, it's because they were inhibited, rather than, okay, I'm an introvert and I'm really uncomfortable here.
Interesting.
A lot of her exercises were very visual, and so I felt very not at ease, which was the sensation that she was trying to impart, and I was like, I don't feel good about any of this, so.
And that's funny because your very talk was about
And then
those types of situations where people expect you to do a certain thing, and it's
the other thing that really frustrated me is during one of the verbal improv exercises I was good at. So she would give you a phrase and you would have to speak for like 2 minutes. And so my phrase was, don't tell me to ... And so I said, don't tell me to be positive. And mine was all about how people say that disability is a blessing in disguise. And, oh, if I could just have an experience just like yours, but not really though. And, so my talk was...
if I were you, I would.
Yes.
A lot of people start...
Yeah. Or when people say, aren't you glad you don't have to drive? And I look at them and say, no, I'd really love to be able to drive.
Exactly.
Jerk, bleep,
Aren't you glad you can't drive? You would be stuck in this traffic. Well, I would gladly take being stuck in the traffic.
If I could travel independently.
Right.
And so when I did my improv exercise, I impersonated the voice of sort of a well-wisher who doesn't bother to empathize, and I said, oh, if I could just have a sliver of what you experience on a daily basis, I'd feel so inspired. And then I said, but not really though, not really, because I would like to drive, and it sucks that not everything is brailled, and I started to kind of unpack all the issues that we face. And so then we had to present a part of our actual speech. And the coach at the workshop said, well, Emily, you have to work really hard not to be bitter, because you kind of channeled a bitter voice earlier. And I thought, but my prompt asked me for a bitter response. So
Right.
she really came down hard on, because you're disabled, you should never be bitter, you should never be critical. We don't want you to make people uncomfortable. And I disagree with that.
But
Now,
that's the whole point,
right,
isn't it? Like,
right, to flex their attitudes a little bit. Now, I'm not going to go out and make people feel judged, and I have had people watch my talk and say, oh, when I heard you saying that, I realized I've done that. And they said, but I walked away feeling empowered rather than judged. And that was my goal, but I did have to make people realize, oh crap, I've done that,
yeah, and I was thinking about myself as well. Like when I was listening to it, I was like, have I done that? Am I one of the people that have done that? And I recalled, and this is just a personal note, I recalled the first time I met you. It was in my brother's driveway, and when I met you, you were sitting in my cousin's car, and I did not even know that you were blind. I thought you just had your dog. Like, I didn't know you were blind. So, like,
what a weirdo. She brings her dog.
No, because I bring my dog everywhere.
I know,
so
right?
I was just kind of like, we bonded in that
Yeah.
moment. Like, you've got your dog. I take my dog too. And I didn't even know you were blind until like the next time I met you. And I was like, oh, like it's a service dog. Okay. So, like, because I had already, I don't know, met you as not a blind person, I didn't really...
It was like no big deal.
It really wasn't a big deal to me. Like, we had communicated on Facebook,
Right.
and my cousin had told me stories, and in my mind, you were never, like, you were never blind, so when I saw you again and I realized that York was a service dog, I was like, oh, well, okay,
Well,
like,
and
what else?
Your cousin is funny, too, because when he first met me, we were in grad school, and I was holding my book close to my face, like about an inch from my face, and he was like, and he told me that
He
this
made
went,
some smart comment.
yeah, he was like, what's wrong with her? What, is she blind or something? And like, he was like, well, she must love books the way I do. Maybe she likes the smell. And then like a week later, I had emailed the class asking for help with something because I couldn't travel independently. And I said, would you like to watch class with me because I'm blind? And he was like, oh my God, she is blind. So it was funny. He didn't tell me that till years later, by the way. So I was like, whoa, okay.
Right.
But it was just so funny. And he's one of the people who the disability thing is not even an issue for him. And so a lot of times when I explain to him how other people treat me, there's a moment of disbelief. He just doesn't think that I'm making it up. But it's like, because it's so far from how he would treat me, he doesn't see it. You know what I mean? Like, how are you serious? Do people really? And so when I got York and I started traveling with my guide dog, he has seen firsthand how people treat me differently and badly, and it makes him upset because he is seeing that what I'm telling him is true.
Right, and we just shake our heads like, those stupid humans.
Yeah, because they're dummies, you know?
So speaking of York, I know that he's your first guide dog, right? And
Yes.
you guys graduated last year?
2014, summer of 2014.
Okay.
So we're about to hit 3 years. Yeah.
So what was the transition like? I read a little bit about it, but just so you can talk about it a little bit. What was the transition like between the cane and going to York? I know you talk a lot about it in your writings, but I just for us.
There was one moment that summed it up for me, and it's probably the moment that you've read, because I write about it a lot, because it's one of those moments that you feel like you're on a threshold and you're like, oh my God. So I had started to work with York, and he did not like me at first. I was not his previous trainer, so he was mad at me.
That can't be true.
I know. He did not like me. He was mad at me. He ignored me, wouldn't let me pet him. So we got our dogs. We went to guide dog school on a Monday, and the first day you don't walk around with your dog at all. You get a leash, and you have to hold it on your body at some point. So I draped it across my body, and that's supposed to represent how your dog will always be with you. Now, they also encourage you not to wander around with your cane. They're not going to take your cane away, but the campus is so flat that you really won't need much of it. So I don't even remember whether I used my cane that much that first couple of days. So that's a Monday that you come to campus, and the school was in Palmetto, just outside of Tampa, so it's totally unfamiliar. You get dropped off. It's a residential school.
Right, fabulous.
Yeah. So, but
no context.
I know, right? These random strangers, but everything was amazing. The food was the best part. But so then Tuesday morning, you go on what's called a Juno walk, and that's where a trainer holds the end of the harness and pretends to be a dog, and they measure your pace and your pull, and how well, do you walk in a straight line and things like that. Basically, just a sense of your personality as a walker, because they want to get a sense of what dog is going to be best suited to you.
They haven't chosen your dog yet at this point.
They have chosen a pool of dogs.
Oh, okay.
And they're just confirming that whoever they've picked is really for you. because whoever is interviewing you in class may not be the person who came and did your home interview weeks or months before.
Okay.
So my trainer was hilarious because he pretended like he was trying to run after squirrels the whole time, and I was like, that's ridiculous.
But it's not really ridiculous.
No, it's
because of
not,
what York
because-
did on the way in tonight.
Exactly.
He was like, no, I don't want to find the door.
Yeah, I want to smell this bush. So they asked me, I remember this moment very vividly. They asked me, they said, now you've said that you want a dog that's high energy, smart, and they said, do you mind a little bit of goofiness? And I said, I guess not. But I didn't want one of those.
What
like,
does goofy mean?
Yeah, I
What's
didn't
the
want one of
spectrum
those.
goofy?
Yeah, you know, I knew that I didn't want one of those lovey-dovey labs who just wouldn't focus. You know, and so I said, I really want somebody who can focus. And they said, okay. So that afternoon, you get your dog. You meet your dog, and again, that's when York didn't like me. But you don't start your actual harness training until the next day. And so I believe it was a Wednesday or a Thursday. I think it was the Thursday that I was working with. No, I think it was that Wednesday that I was working with him. We walked this really short little nature trail. And to call it a nature trail is an overstatement because it was like a little paved pathway across some grass, you know, and it led up to like a little gazebo. And we stepped up onto the gazebo and took a seat. And my trainer answered some questions for me. And when you use a white cane to walk, your cane sweeps the ground in front of you, and it alerts you to things, especially changes in elevation. And for me, every time that I've ever tripped or twisted an ankle, it has been off of a curb. So I'm always really cautious around steps and curbs because that's my kryptonite, you know. I don't tend to trip over other stuff. I don't trip over my own feet, you know, but I've stepped off curbs many times the wrong way. So when you're walking with a dog, you feel all of that information through that harness handle that you hold on to. But it doesn't feel the same way as a cane. It's not as tactile. It's almost like more of a big picture situation where your dog will just take you around things that are problematic rather than you having to tap your way out. You know,
Right.
So we stood up to go back inside, and I had to step down from the gazebo onto the paved pathway. Okay, this was like one step. It was not a huge drop off. It was not like a huge crazy curb, and my trainer was right there. I stood up, I took York's harness, I walked to the edge of the steps, and he stopped, and they stop abruptly for any kind of change like that, especially a step down. And she said, whenever you're ready, tell him to go down. I stood there for 5 minutes because I was so afraid to step down and step wrong. And I was so afraid to trust that he would actually take me down smoothly because I couldn't feel how far down I had to step because I didn't have a cane in my hand. So I had no way to measure it.
Right.
And I just didn't know that he would. I mean, I'm sitting here recounting this and I'm feeling it in my brain. Like
Yeah.
I had no way to know.
I kind of see you getting a little emotional. Like
It was hard. I mean, it was so hard. And I feel like now, how silly. I stood there and my trainer was really gentle and she said, whenever you're ready. And she didn't say, you know, you've got to trust him. Like, you know, she didn't push me. So finally I said, oh my God, I've just got to do it. I've just got to do it. And so I told him, you know, forward, down. And we stepped off the curb, and it was like, no big deal. And it was like, wait a second. Like a few minutes later, I'm halfway down the path, and I don't even realize that I'm down the path. And it's like, what was I so worried about? But I still remember that moment because that was the moment when I had to decide whether this whole situation was going to work.
Yeah.
It was objectively, I knew he was trained well, but I had to decide to accept it. So, ever since then, it's like no big deal. It's like if I could trust him to do that one thing, I could trust him to do anything.
Yes.
And so I realized much later in training, I didn't even miss my cane. And I loved traveling with my cane. So I was not one of those, there's a lot of blind people who hate their canes. I wasn't one of those people. You know, I loved my cane. So, it's funny now because I miss the sound of the cane. If I hear another blind person traveling, I'm like, oh, I miss that sound. But I don't miss the cane. Being with the dog is so amazing. Like, it's just, he's such an extension of your body, and you get this sense that you have somebody on your team who's looking out for you. And like when you walk with a human partner, they might say, okay, well, we're going to go this way because it looks better. But there's always their ego in the way and kind of their I know best, you know. But when your dog knows best, it's because they really do.
Yeah.
And there's no ego involved, and they really are looking out for you. And it's just an incredible experience. The hardest thing has been dealing with the constant social attention I get. And I will say, if you're an introvert and you get a service dog, God help you, because people always want to talk to you about him, and they're not always kind. And people say, like, they say, oh, obviously he's still in training. And it's like, no, he's not. Like, that's rude. What you just said is rude. So, and people have been, but of course people are also very friendly. So you just kind of run the gamut. But I had a friend tell me, you know, okay, how many people come up to you when you have your cane? Well, times that by about 4, and that's how many people will come up to you with your dog. And it's true. I'm almost every time I go out, unless I'm somewhere where they know me, I get people coming up and talking to me about the dog. So,
yeah, that's interesting. I would imagine, and I'm just kind of thinking in my head, like, when you have York now and you're negotiating a curb, like, you could probably feel the tilt of his body.
Oh, yeah,
and,
absolutely.
like, you really know his body, and he really knows your body, too.
He does, and he doesn't rush me on
so
curbs.
You guys work together as a team, like you were saying, like a
Yes.
team. Like, you're one organism for those moments when you're...
Honestly, I have more trepidation stepping down if I'm holding onto a person than I do with York. York will do it fine. Like, you know, but like...
And he knows what signals to send
He
you.
does. He does. And he, like I said, he will stop, do a hard stop for a down curb. Now, up curbs, he's supposed to stop before we go up, but often he doesn't. He just goes on ahead because he knows that we're following someone or we're with someone, and he knows we're going up the curb. He's too smart, you know.
Yeah.
But down curbs, he knows to do a hard stop for those.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. So speaking of York, how, if York could talk, how would he describe you? Like what's one secret York could tell us about
me?
Emily that no one else knows? Like, York probably knows more about you than most people.
I think York knows that I work too hard, and York knows when I need to play. York knows about, and you're a dog lover, so you get this, and you can see that I'm misting up already. York knows about the times when you just sit with your dog and you just tell them how much you love them, and you could just sob uncontrollably because you're overwhelmed by how much you love them. York is the first person I've ever baby talked to, you know.
Well, that is an honor.
I know, right? And it's funny because I had friends who, you know, as soon as, of course, I brought him home, and I loved him from the start, even when he did not love me.
How long did it take to?
A couple days.
Oh, okay. So not long.
Yes. So once he realized that I was the one who would be feeding him, he was a little more amenable. And then at the end of the week on a Friday, and this happens at most training programs, your trainer turns to you and says, "Is this the dog you want to work with? Do you want to pursue training with this dog, or do you think we need to switch out, you know, work with someone else?" And I said, and I knew at that time that York was so brilliant, he was so smart, and he executed everything so perfectly. I said, I need to work with him even if he's a butthole, you know, even if he'll just be the arrogant SOB who, like, you know, yeah, and he's grumbling now. But you know, so like the Ice Prince, right? Like, he's just so brilliant, but he's not kind. Even if he's that way, I don't care. I'll still work with him. So we went inside, because we were outside at that point. We went inside, and she said, "I want you to put York in your room. Just, you know, clip his leash to the little tie down thing, and so that he can roam around. But you're going to come with me. We're going to practice your leash corrections on they have a fake dog named Stewie, and you had to practice, you know, correcting. We just didn't want to practice on a real dog because corrections are disciplinary. So,
right.
I'm in the hallway practicing with Stewie, and York is around the corner, and he can't see me, but he can hear me correcting what he assumes is another dog. And this is when he started carrying on and whining and getting highly offended. And I came home, and he, like, you know, came back to my room, and he came sniffing all over me, like, "Where have you been? Who have you been with? I can't believe you would." And that was when he decided, "No, that's my person. What are you talking?" And I could really feel a change in his behavior, as though he realized that I might start working with someone else. You know, he was like, that's my girl. So
that's right.
It was really funny because that's when I really noticed a big change. But I do think he knows when I need to stop working and play with him, because he bugs me all the time. He's like, "You're grading papers, you need to stop it." And
that's also a good friend to have, like, to
yes.
tell you when enough is enough.
Well, and I think he sees the softer side of me. I mean, like I said, he sees me when I'm sick. He always jumps up on he doesn't sleep with me normally, but he jumps up on my bed if I'm laying on my bed, like, you know, sick or not feeling well or whatever. And I would just say he has seen me at my most vulnerable, and he still loves me. So.
Yeah. That's awesome. We could talk all night about
I
the
know.
dog.
Separate interview.
Well, I will say that a lot of what I read, you write a lot about the picture of inclusion, that's important to you, and in the essay Border Talk, you talked a lot about the first timers questions.
Yes.
Like, can you see what I look like?
Yeah.
Do you see in your dreams? And would you like to be cured? And I found that a very interesting question for people to ask you. Would you like to be cured? A lot of deaf people find it almost insulting if someone wants to be cured of deafness. Do you find that in the sight limited community as well? Like, do people say, well, no, we're fine the way we are? To get corrections would be an insult.
I don't know that there's a strong, people say that there's not as much of a blind culture as there is a deaf culture, and I don't think that's true. I think there is a very rich blind culture, but there is not the same allegiance to blindness for blindness' sake. Like with the deaf community, it's the allegiance to their language and their heritage, and the fact that they have made something of their lives when everybody has told them they shouldn't have, you know. I do know a woman who, she was the daughter of an artist, and she was blind, and so for her, she would be cured tomorrow if she could. You know, she just was miserable as a blind person. And I know a lot of other blind people who are frustrated by the fact that their vision fluctuates a lot. And the one thing that people don't realize about blindness is you don't always have the same vision you woke up with, you know? So, like for me, if I go out in bright sunlight, I'm pretty much totally blind. But if I'm in here, I'm not. And so that's really, it's unpredictable vision, you know? But right. I do feel that most of us, most well-adjusted blind people would say, no, I'm cool, I'm good. It's not my biggest problem. You know, I would like to be able to drive and plug my own eyebrows, but, you know, the vision itself is rarely the biggest issue.
Right. Right. That's interesting.
I think what's frustrating for me, and I was raised in a conservative religious background, is the idea that people assumed, you know, honey, I'll pray for you, and you know, or like faith healers, you know, would come up and try to cure me, and I always felt so, like, horrible afterward, because I felt grimy. I felt that I was seeing myself the way they must see me, as someone who needed to be fixed. And I thought, you know, and I would talk to friends and I'd say, I wonder what, you know, like what would Jesus have said to me about, because again, the other thing that they would imply is that if my faith was stronger, I would be healed. Now, you don't know me. You don't know my relationship to God. You know,
right.
You don't have the right to say that. So I always wanted to say, oh yeah, like that moment in the Bible when Jesus ran after that blind guy. Like, no, he didn't do that. You know, the guy came to him and was like, can you help me? You know, Jesus didn't like tackle him to the ground. Let me fix you. You know, but that's how those people treat you, and they make you feel like garbage when they talk to you about it. And they must see you as so pathetic, and you think, God, but you know, I'm so happy, and I live in a first world country, and I'm not terminally ill, you know. I mean, there's a lot of other things that could be wrong, and I'm okay, you know.
Yeah, that's interesting. So one of the things, and I'll start wrapping up because we've been here a while. So one of the things that I liked in one of your in the TED Talk actually was when you described the victim, the superhero, and then the unmentionable. What I found interesting about the superhero was that you said the superhero looks like a superhero because they don't try anything that they don't know, that they think they won't be good at. Let me say that again, because I think I messed that up.
Right.
They don't try things that they know they won't be good at.
Yes.
And I found that really resonated with me, because not only blind people, but people in general tend to do that. Like, they don't try things that they don't think they'll be good at.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say, from me to you, that I am glad that you try things that you are unsure that you'll be good at. And I think so far
it's hard. I'm still a superhero, and it's very hard. And again, the other side of that is people always want to tell you how amazing you are, and so then you don't want to disappoint them by being not good at
mediocre.
Something. Because then again, like I said in the TED Talk, when the superhero fails, they become the victim. There's no in between. There is no, oh, that's just a hard thing for you to do, or oh, maybe you're having a bad day. It's, oh, your life must be worthless. You are deserving of our pity. So there's no continuum, you know. It's either or, and that's what's so frustrating about overcompensating, is if you decide, okay, I'm not going to overcompensate anymore, I'm going to mess up, I'm going to you know, for me, one thing that I've talked about, I don't know if this has come up in what you've read, is things like when I drop a marker in the classroom and I can't find it on the floor. I feel like I should wait till everyone leaves before I get on my hands and knees and start looking for the marker, because I don't want to sit there and fumble in front of my class.
Right.
I don't want to announce to the class, I dropped a marker and I can't find it, because that makes me feel so embarrassed. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll move around my foot, kind of like, oh, there, that must be where
On
it
the
is.
slide.
Yeah, and it's like, in one class, I felt so comfortable with this class, I said, I dropped a marker, and if anyone would like to help me find it, that would be cool. And one person, 4 or 5 people jumped up to find it. They were so mellow about it, they didn't care.
Yeah.
And with other classes, depending on the personality of the class, it's no big deal. But for me, I don't want to fumble, and I realize that's the superhero. I need to be able to say, and maybe fumbling is not the right course because it would still make me feel kind of crappy, but maybe the right course is to say, I just dropped my marker and I cannot see it on this ugly carpet, so if one of y'all could help me find my marker, that would be so great, But that's me working really, really hard against my inclination to be awesome at everything, and if I'm not awesome at it, it's because then people will start to question whether I am, whether I am worth their pity,
Well, I have to say that even though I knew you before, I've learned a lot about you, and I enjoyed talking to you tonight, and hopefully we'll do it again. I think we have a lot more to talk about.
Yes, I agree.
I think our next conversation will be about body image.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Stay tuned, everybody, to the body image conversation. That's going to be coming soon because we both have a lot to say on that.
Absolutely.
But you can find the TEDx talk on YouTube. It's called The Confluence of Disability and Imagination. And your WordPress blog is Are You Seeing This? And I think the title of it is called On the Blink. Is that true?
That's correct.
And then if they look you up on Facebook, they can find the links to
Correct.
other blogs and also some publications. Actually, you can find them on Amazon.com. If you look up Emily K. Michael as a writer, you can find all of her contributions to various publications there, like I did. So if you're looking to find out more, you can find out more. And when I publish this, I'll put some other links to things that I found particularly interesting. So
Cool.
Thank you very much for eating with me and talking with me this evening.
This is a blast. I had fun.
All right, thanks.